Michelle Graves, your host on The Power of Money, and I'm honored to have you as a part of my world in this coming segment. With The Power of Money, as you know, we are interested in three things. First, that you get the necessary education so that you and your family will have the information to do well in these difficult times. The second thing I'm interested in is for you to be empowered to prosper. I want only the best for you, but you can't get that if you don't have the education and then the drive to make it happen. And the final thing, and perhaps the most important thing, is that you be energized. Because life is more than a journey. Life is about living. And so I want you to learn these things and to be empowered and encouraged and energized. I'm Michelle Graves. Now here we go.
And here we go. And do I have a great show for you today? We're going to be talking to an amazing man based out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But he's a national personality and a person of tremendous insight and reputation in his field, which is the whole banking genre. So I'm going to be devoting this next hour to talking about a book that recently published, authored by Don Graves, on housing wealth. Now, the reason that this is so important, and it's been tough getting him on this station because he's a busy man, but I wanted him on because the truth of the matter is, viewers, most people have most of their money today tied up in their homes. And as we approach retirement or are actively in retirement and begin to look at buckets of money, where our money is, we will find consistently that our money is in the house. So how do you tap into the house? How do you turn the house into a bank and make it work efficiently for you? So it is on that subject matter that I am going to be talking to you today about this book called Housing Wealth and what you need to do to begin to change the conversation in your home and in your life about planning ahead. And I've also asked him, as a part of this interview today, if he would put a little bit of time into talking about women and the fact that women have unique retirement disadvantages and how housing wealth can change that. This is a very important show to me, and I hope that you will enjoy it as much as I'm going to enjoy it, being able to listen to his insights and his perspectives on how we get through this retirement conversation. And believe me when I tell you, one of the things that bumped me in the face this morning before I got to the station was the whole conversation about Social Security, and they are definitely saying, without a doubt, that it is going broke. And so, again, because so many people depend on Social Security as one of those legs to keep them balanced, we want to extend the conversation to talk about your home. And let's just hope that you are a homeowner. If you're not, I'm sure you know someone who is, who will benefit from this conversation. So without any further dialogue, conversation, today's show is going to be about housing wealth, what you can do and should do today. Also, I want to remind you that you can watch this show on YouTube. Just type in The Power of Money, Housing Wealth, Michelle Graves, and you will get the entire interview. You can watch it, you can pass it on, you can link. Also, if you have questions, you can call me on my toll-free number, 800-734-3915. That's 800-734-3915. That toll-free number is available 24 hours a day. You can leave messages. I will return the call. If you have questions specific to Don Graves, you can make a note on that 800 number as well. So you do have two venues that you can reach out on questions. And I'm sure many of you will have questions. For those of you that are advisors that are watching and listening in, you really do need to relook at this product and program. Things have changed, and we're in really, really weird times. You need to be able to offer your clients realistic alternatives for their life. So again, that's just background. We're going to get on into the show right now. Don, are you on?
I'm right here, Michelle. How are you?
I'm doing great. Good to see you. You look wonderful. You do, and
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to us having a substantive interview and hearing what you have to say. I'm also going to be telling them about this phenomenal book that you just wrote and published. Give me a little bit of background about yourself.
Well, thanks, Michelle. Thanks for having me. Well, I'm Don Grace. I've been involved with reverse mortgages since my older sister, she's significantly older than me, 14 years older, introduced me to the concept 20 years ago. Her name was Michelle Graves. I love her. She's in Cincinnati, Ohio. And before that time, I'd served as a missionary, a pastor. I was running a large nonprofit called Habitat for Humanity. And then I was introduced to this idea that older and aging Americans could utilize their housing asset to make for a better retirement. So that was 3,000 clients ago, more than 14,000 client interviews, and 16,000 advisors I've spoken with over 20 years. And that's a little bit of my background. Now, I'm an adjunct instructor at the American College for Financial Services, the largest accrediting university in the country for financial advisors. I do education. I've been on PBS. I've been all these different places, but my passion is educating the advisor and the consumer about the role of housing wealth in retirement income planning, not thinking about the commercials that we've all seen on television, moving beyond the commercial into a different type of conversation.
That's awesome. So tell me, what has been your experience? Because I know the program changed dramatically several years ago. And again, without going into all the details and the minutia, I think that this is a phenomenal opportunity for so many seniors who are house rich and cash poor to take advantage of this federally insured program. Your thoughts?
Excuse me, I've got a little cold here. I'll try to cover it when I speak. Sure. When we think about reverse mortgages, when your listeners and viewers will hear that, a lot of times, Michelle, there's an initial reaction. I mean, just bring up reverse mortgages at the next family reunion or barbecue, and you'll see someone will mention, I'm thinking about getting a reverse mortgage from mama, and 3 people will throw the potato salad at you. Your aunt, you didn't know she did. You didn't know your aunt did time until she made a shake out of the plastic knife and fork and came after you. And so sometimes bringing up reverse mortgages will elicit a reaction, and that's really based off of some, I think, some old data, some things that have been updated. There are 3 questions that I ask particularly advisors, but those who are watching your show can answer this as well. And this will kind of frame the subject we're talking about today. And so I ask an advisor or a consumer, the question is, how many of your clients who are at or in retirement do you think would have a need for a reverse mortgage? Now, typically, if someone's being very honest with me, they'll say, oh, 10%, 5 or 10%. And I say, great. To your audience, maybe those listening, how many of you who are retired or your parents, do you think would need a reverse mortgage? Typically 10%. The second question is, of those people, how many of them would say they're 100% certain they'll have a great retirement? Well, that's a small number too. That's usually 5 or 10% of people who are 100% certain. Most people do not have retirement certainty. And third and final question I ask, if there was a resource that allowed the retiree to increase their cash flow, reduce their retirement risks, preserve their assets, improve their liquidity, or even add new dollars back into retirement income, what percentage of your clients or your friends would want you to tell them about it? Now, Michelle, you know that answer is 100%. Because the truth is, who in retirement or approaching retirement wouldn't want to know about increasing their cash flow, reducing their risks, preserving the assets they have, improving the liquidity, or adding new dollars. Those are 5 things. And that's what the newly restructured reverse mortgage is designed to do. Those 5 things. So I asked the advisor, I said, now wait a minute. You told me that probably 10% of the people you knew, your clients, would have a need for a reverse mortgage, but then you just said that 100% of those people would want you to tell them what a reverse mortgage does. So you see the impasse, Michelle.
I sure
People
do.
are people are moving on kind of old perceptions, but reverse mortgages are about one thing and one thing only. They're about retirement. Period. How do we create retirement outcomes? Because we're going to live longer. Most people have not saved enough, and we're coming into retirement highly indebted. Credit cards, mortgage, home equity loans, lines of credit. So those 3 things are providing an impetus. And did you know this? I know you did. And but an article last week said that 55% of the people are going to live longer than they expected. Right?
Yes,
So
yes.
so that means someone saying, "Well, I think I'll die at 70, 75, and 80."
No.
But what if you live to 85? What if you live just 5 years longer? Well, that means you're going to need an extra two, three, $400,000, because at that point in your life, you may be spending $50,000 a year or 40. But whatever that number is, multiply whatever you're spending in a year times 5, and you say, "Wow, I'm going to live longer than I imagined. Am I prepared for that?" So reverse mortgages are not a product. They're not a tool. They're not the just for late night television or daytime television. They're about retirement and retirement income planning.
I just wanted to add just my own observations over the years, and I'm officially in that baby boomer flush out. I call it baby busters
Uh-huh.
because we have this group retires with less than, this is the data, $25,000 in savings. The boomers have busted, and they have a house and they have a mortgage in many instances, a mortgage that on a fixed income becomes very, very overwhelming in some cases. Most people are not going to tell you their situation, but if you know from
Mm-hmm.
data and statistics and in your own personal experience that they don't have the financial resources and they have a mortgage or they have a house that may be free and clear, I doubt it, but maybe they do, is this an opportunity?
Well, sure. One of the things you mentioned earlier that I want to update for your listeners is that reverse mortgages, when you introduced this to me 20 years, AARP had a video out,
Yep,
VHS,
yep.
and it started out and it says, if you consider yourself house rich but cash poor, a reverse mortgage may be right for you. Now, I'm suggesting that profile has changed fairly dramatically. I had a Merrill Lynch advisor call me. He said, "Don, I've got a client. The client had $5 million
Whoa.
invested with Merrill Lynch. He lived in Stone Harbor, New Jersey, in a house that was worth $4.5 million. He was a retired CEO of a large multinational pharmaceutical company whose name everybody would know. And so the question was, his Merrill Lynch advisor calls me and says, my client wants me to investigate a reverse mortgage for him. Now, that doesn't fit the profile of what most people are thinking, house rich and cash poor. He had $5 million. He had a $4.5 million home. Why in the world would this person be investigating a reverse mortgage? I'll tell you why. Because last year he put an elevator into his shore home. The elevator was $200,000 to put it in. Not a lot of money for those who have that type of money, but he had to take a loan to do that. He didn't want to pull it from his savings. So over the last 15 years, he had taken loans and mortgages against his property, and that was now $2.5 million in mortgage debt. He had
Woo
a four.
wee.
Every month, his principal and interest payment was $26,500. So he's spending more than $300,000 a year to just pay his mortgage related debt. So here's a person, $5 million for $4.5 million home, that wanted to ask the question that most of retirees should ask the same question. Here it is. What would life be like if I didn't have to make this monthly mortgage payment? Let me stop right there. Let me repeat it. What would life be like if I didn't have to make a monthly mortgage payment? Now, maybe you don't have a payment of $26,500 a month and $5 million in savings. Maybe your payment is $1,700 a month or $800 a month. But the truth is, up to 68% of retirees are coming into retirement having some sort of mortgage-related payment. What does that do for you or your viewers if you didn't have to pay that? If you had another $500, $1,800, $1,700, or $26,000 a month in cash flow? That's the structure of the new reverse mortgage. Getting rid of a monthly mortgage payment absolutely changes your retirement. And why would you want to have a mortgage payment a mandatory mortgage payment in retirement if you didn't have to?
And I'm going to also say, why would you do it? Because again, at retirement, the tax benefits of paying a bank, it just doesn't make any sense. You have this interest payment, and more importantly, you're on a fixed income, meaning you're not working. You've got to deplete assets. You've got to allocate a budget. And now you've got that big whopper called your mortgage. That's serious.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And let me back up for the viewers that are tuning in. Maybe you just joined, and we're talking about reverse mortgages, but in a way that's different than perhaps you've heard it. We're putting it, I like to use the term housing wealth. But yes. I want to explain what a reverse mortgage is. Just give the basics. A reverse mortgage has been around for 30 years, February 1988. So in 2018, when this is being recorded, it's now 30 years old. So it's not a new program at all. It's 30 years old. Pardon me. So the reverse mortgage is just a mortgage. 4 words that will keep you from getting stabbed at the family reunion. It's just a mortgage. It's just a mortgage. And it's not spooky. It's just a mortgage. The difference is for those aged 62 years or older. Now, Michelle, you may know this, but only one spouse has to be age 62 nowadays to get a reverse mortgage. So you know the age of the other spouse, the minimum age they have to be.
I don't know.
It's 18 years of age.
So they're an adult.
They're an adult. So
okay.
You can get a reverse if you're 18 and you've married someone who's 70. Now, my family's from Kentucky, so that wouldn't be too unusual. But it'd probably be unusual. Unless you're in Alabama, then you can go down to 14 in Alabama. But but 18. So 18 and one spouse has to be age 62. So the reverse mortgage allows you, the homeowner, to convert a portion of your home's value, turn it into tax-free dollars, where there's no minimum monthly payment required. The amount of money you get is based off of this triangle. At the top of the triangle is the age of the youngest borrower, the value of the home, and the current interest rate. So right now, a 65-year-old is getting about 40% of the value of their home. Now, finally, and importantly, the loan gets repaid when the last surviving borrower permanently departs the house, moves or deceases. At that time, whatever money was advanced to you, plus the interest that accrues if you don't decide to make a payment, gets repaid. And 100% of the remaining equity passes on to you if you move, or your heirs or your estate if you decease. So that's the reverse mortgage. It's using the home to create a retirement outcome or satisfaction that you desire. And when you die, the house is typically sold, the children pay off whatever's owed, and they pocket the difference. That's a reverse mortgage. I wanted to pause there just to make sure we had a basic understanding.
I think that that was a very appropriate pause, Don, because I think that there's so much bad advice, misinformation, disinformation about this. In my opinion, this is the savior of my generation. This,
Sure.
this product is the savior of my generation. Why? Because we're the Pepsi generation, we're the hot pants generation, we're the Boogaloo Twiggy generation. And we spent like this 1999, we vacation, lines of credit, children, private schools, all of the above. And so many of us are, like I said, baby bust. It's here. So you've laid the foundation, which is this is a mortgage, just like you pay your bank. But it has very unique characteristics because it was designed for retirees. Is that a fair statement?
Sure. And I'd like for your listeners to think of this as a tool. Um,
Okay.
and you've got three primary tools in retirement, three buckets or pockets of wealth. You've got your income. Maybe you're still working, maybe you got a pension, maybe you have Social Security. Number two, you've got your investments, 401k, 403b, stocks, bonds, IRA, those type of things. And number three, you've got your insurances. Maybe you've got whole life insurance, maybe you've got an annuity, which is an insurance product. So you have those three things, and you've got to draw from those. And you've got to create sustainable income that keeps up with purchasing power, right? Because a dollar today won't be what a dollar's worth in 10 or 20 years. But
Exactly.
are those three pockets alone sufficient? Income, investment, and insurance, as also, are they sufficient? I would say no. What happens when you add the single biggest asset that most people in this country are sitting on? Now, I'm a Christian man. I have to watch how I say this, because once I said to a lady, Mrs. Jones, you're sitting on your biggest asset. And she said, I beg your pardon? I said, you got a big asset. That just said, she looked at me. I said, no, your house, Miss Jones, your house. That's your big asset. And so what do when the Census Bureau says that 68% of Americans' total wealth, 68% is in their housing wealth? What do you do with that? How do you convert that into something that's livable and sustainable? So I use the term housing wealth. That's the name of my book, because housing wealth is different from home equity. Home equity is the value of your house minus whatever mortgage you have is home equity. Home equity does nothing for you. Zero. Home equity is like Jed Clampett of the Beverly Hillbillies, knowing that he has oil in his backyard. Knowing you have oil is different from being able to get it out of the ground. You can have oil, diamonds, gold, rubies in your backyard, but if you can't get it out, it does you no good. Housing wealth is what happens when you're able to monetize the equity in your home and use it for retirement purposes. That's when retirement begins to take on new options and new opportunities.
And I think that's exciting because at the point in your life where you don't have predictable income from employment, whether it be working for a company or working for yourself, you're now in the fourth season of your life, which is essentially retirement, where you can back up and relax and begin to enjoy life and to not have the pressure. This is the thing about not having financial resources that I find so painful as I look at people today, because they're still playing a fake it till you make it. You can't fake this thing. You can't, because it's going to perch on your back fence and start barking at you. And so this, and this is why, like I said, this book you wrote, I read it from cover to cover. I've read it several times. I need you to send me another copy, because I told you I'm going to mark this book up. I can't mark this book up. But the key thing that I believe that people need to be aware of is that it is not amusing. As I said, I just heard today that Social Security is broke. And I'm like, oh, really? Oh my gosh. No. And so what are we going to do as another bucket so that we can leverage? If 68% of people have mortgages, that statistic in my group, then they need to be using this as an option. What are some of the challenges with this product? It cannot be all perfect.
Sure, sure. So let's go back and we're going to talk about kind of the challenges, the downside
Okay.
of reverse mortgages, because it's true. It's not a worthy product for everyone to have. Now, in the early example I gave about the person that had the $4.5 million home and $2.5 million in mortgage debt,
Yes.
and $5 million, my recommendation to him was that he not do the reverse mortgage. There was a jumbo reverse mortgage that was going to pay off his mortgage and leave him with some money that he could do some other things. And my recommendation was that he not do that. I said, I would suggest that he sell his home, $4.5 million home, pay off his existing mortgage of $2.5 million, and he'd have $2 million left. Now, that may not get him a house on the beach, but that will get him something on the bay. And if he moved to Falmouth, Kentucky, he'd get a nice little house with a few horses on it as well.
Yes, he
would. But he would keep his money intact. So what he ended up doing was he sold his house. He paid off the mortgages. He had $2 million left. He bought $1 million home in Pennsylvania. He put $1 million back into his savings, so he had $6 million now. And he's renting a beautiful home at the shore with a boat slip where his grandchildren can come and visit. So he has saved a tremendous amount of money and preserved his legacy benefit without giving up any lifestyle at all. So that's an example of where I think a reverse mortgage was not the best alternative. And in my 20 years, I've had about 14,000 consumer-facing conversations and about 3,000 people who decided to move forward. Mm-hmm. And all that tells you is that as good as it is for many people, it's not always the right thing to do. And I'll say that. It's the right conversation to have always, but it's not always the right conclusion to come to. So one of the downsides of a reverse mortgage, someone says, Don, I'm not going to be in my home more than 3 to 5 years. I wouldn't do it. Unless there was a real emergency, I wouldn't do it because you're not there long enough to have the closing costs amortized out. That wouldn't be a good situation. Someone says, Don, I've got a daughter or a brother living in the home. They've got a particular medical or physical condition. I'm concerned of encumbering the house, and when I die, they may not be able to sustain it. You should look at other alternatives before you consider a reverse mortgage. Someone says, well, Don, what if I get the mortgage and I got the line of credit, I set it up, but I never used it? Is that a downside? I said, possibly, but not necessarily. That's something you can consider. Don, what if I got all the money? Mama got all the money and she spent it, and she went over there to the casino and she just spent $100,000, and now she wants to move to assisted living or somewhere and she doesn't have the money. I said, sure, that could be a downside. I don't know if that's a reverse mortgage downside. That's more behavioral, but you may not want to put the temptation in front of them. Don, I can go down to the bank, excuse me, and I can get a loan, a home equity line of credit that may not be as much in closing costs. I said, sure. You can go down there and do that. That may be a great solution for you. However, if you're planning to stay in your home long term, it may not be. So those are some of the considerations to weigh. You've been involved in this, Michelle, as well. Are there any downsides that I may have missed that you can help your viewers out?
Well, I'm going to be candid with you. I think you've covered them as best we can. You can't stop people from spending money. And that was one of the issues when I was doing this product 20 years ago. You'd give people lump sums, and all of a sudden, all of their behavior got really different. They went traveling, they spent money, they went casino, and then they were broke, and then they still had to pay their taxes and insurance because it is your home. I think that should be emphasized, that the title remains in your name. You're still responsible for taxes and insurance. You know, it may be a government insured product, but it's still your home, and you have to be able to carry those kinds of outlays, which any homeowner knows. If they're responsible, you have to pay your taxes. You have to pay your homeowner's insurance. You just do. But again, the issue of, I hear it all the time, well, my kids won't get the house. And I'm not trying to be callous here, but your kids don't want your house. You know? They want the money. So if you can set up something where through insurance they can get money, or you can have it set up where upon your demise, after paying off the home, they can split proceeds. But young people today, it's just like with furniture, and I tell elderly people all the time, trust me, when you leave this earth, that furniture is going to do an exit so fast, and not to their homes, to Goodwill or to, you know, garage sales. Or they don't want it. So that's the only thing I see, which is that the lump sum. But I think the program has changed, hasn't it? Where you just can't get a lump sum?
Sure, there's some protective features that preserve equity. But there are two types of children I've discovered in 20 years.
Tell me more.
There's the child that loves mom and daddy, appreciates that they had a home they were raised in, and they were able to go and fend for themselves and make it. And they are committed to seeing that mom and dad have the best life possible as they age. And then there's the other child, the other children. They're not committed to that at all. They're like buzzards circling the carcass, waiting for mom and dad to die so they can get something out of the deal. And so those are the children that are frightening to me. The Menendez brothers come to mind.
Oh.
Maybe that's a bit extreme, but there's a type of child that says, if mama has to eat cat food, then so be it, because mom and dad are going to leave me something. And by the way, cat food is more expensive than tuna. But there's a type of child that frightens me. Now, I suspect most of the people who are viewing this program are not that type of child, that they're committed, they're honoring of their mother and father. They're committed to making sure mom and dad have the best retirement, and whatever they have at the end is what they have because their parents gave it to them during their lifetime. I appreciate working with those type of children. But the truth is that a reverse mortgage may preserve more wealth for the family. That's one of the things I write about in the book, which is someone says, well, Don, I'm not going to be able to leave my house with all of its equity to my children. I said, that's probably correct. But if you're a person that has some means, would you rather leave your child the apple tree or the orchard? Which means you could leave them the house, but what about the IRA, the 401k, the 403b, the life insurance, the annuity products? What about that? If we structure the reverse mortgage as a wealth planning resource, that the chances that you'll leave more wealth to your children go up. They increase for those folk. Now, a lot of people are not in that situation. The truth is a lot of folk are not prepared. They're going to live longer. They're highly in debt, and they haven't saved enough. Your primary concern is, how am I going to get out of this with my dignity intact? How will I live a retirement? And you have to use every available resource at your disposal. You cannot overlook housing wealth for your retirement unless you're that committed that I'm willing to kind of spend less, live less, really cut back on my lifestyle, that Jim and Jenny can have more at the end. That may be something you're committed to. That's fine. Now, I can tell you that if you run out of savings at the end of your life, it could get pretty ugly, and in terms of the cuts that you have to make. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. So my assumption, Michelle, is there are good children that are watching. The reverse mortgage has some protections that you can't have all the money in one lump sum anymore because a lot of people were spending it, or a lot of people would give it to Jimmy or Jenny.
Right.
The amount of money you get has been throttled down a little bit, so you don't get as much money
Up front.
up front as you
Right.
used to, and that's so the program can be around a little bit longer.
Well, I just wanted to know, because I would like for my viewers to be able to get a copy of your book. How can they get this book?
Sure, you can go to Amazon and Google Don Graves Housing Wealth, and you could find it there. That's real easy.
Okay.
If you're an advisor, you can go to housingwealthbook.com, housingwealthbook.com, and that will show you what the chapters are, how they're outlined. And for an advisor, it's really a guide for how Housing Wealth is going to help your clients have a sustainable retirement. If you're a consumer, I think it's an easy read. I think it's simple.
I think it is too.
And it will demystify a lot of the reverse mortgage because we put it in its proper context. It's not a product sold by retired actors. It's a financial planning resource that must be incorporated and integrated with your income, your investments, your insurance, and annuities. When you add Housing Wealth to that picture, there's so much more that you can be able to do and enjoy. Don't live your retirement having don't overlook the most obvious and accessible resource to give you a better retirement. Michelle, I thought about this example the other day of overlooking the obvious. You know that commercial, I think the guy's called Captain Obvious. You ever see that commercial? Well, I thought I'm a big man. I've lost some weight, but imagine a 700-pound person going to the doctor and saying, "My back hurts, my knees hurt, I've got sleep apnea, and I've got indigestion, and I've got high blood pressure," and the doctor says, "Well, we're going to give you some medicine for all of those things," and he comes back in 6 months and says, "Doc, my knees hurt, my back hurts, I'm short of breath." Doctor says, "We're going to change your medication and fix that up." He comes back a year later, 700 pounds, and says, "My back hurts, my knees hurt, nothing seems to be getting better." And the doctor says, "I just don't know what to tell you." Well, the problem was that the doctor was probably overlooking the obvious, which was a consideration may be diet and exercise. Now, we know that's a laughable story. I went to the doctor. I was fat. The doctor says, "Listen, you're fat. You can have bad knees, shortness of breath, high blood pressure, backaches. That's fine. I can give you medicine, but I tell you, the medicine is probably in your hand. It's called a fork. If you can control that and move more, we can." Now, I may not appreciate it that, but I appreciated my doctor not overlooking the obvious. So if you're looking at a financial planning picture and you're saying, "Well, I've got my Social Security and a pension and a part-time job, and I've got an IRA, and I've got this and that, and I've got an annuity, and that's all I've got," but you're living in your house, and
Right.
you're overlooking
Right.
a resource that should be considered. You may not choose to do it, but don't just consider the commercials. Consider the reverse mortgage as a financial planning resource. I'll hold this up and get a hold of that, or talk to a professional that is not pushing a product. It's not a product, folks. It's a strategy that is changing retirement outcomes. There are about 31 different strategies that can be used and looked at, and that's what I would encourage your viewers to do. Consider housing.
Uh-oh, we're having a transmission issue here. So we'll swing back to me for a minute. And again, I want to encourage you to go to Amazon and get your own copy. This is also for children of senior citizens. Why do I say this? Because let me share something with you. If your parents do not have long-term care insurance and they wind up in a situation where the house is now at risk, and it will be at risk. It will be at risk, okay, because of requirements, private pay, you said $10,000 a month. See how quickly things go, and then the last asset. Now, under guidelines, they cannot put, if it's only one going in, they cannot take the house away, but the state will put a lien on the real estate. Why do I say this? Because the reverse mortgage is an opportunity for you to pay for a long-term care insurance policy. You can use the monies through their line of credit to make monthly premium payments, because if not, it's going to be on you. And I'm serious. It's closer and nearer than you ever thought. And it can be absolutely challenging and problematic. So this is why I had Don Graves on, because he is considered one of the top national advisors and the only one who's a specialist in housing wealth. And again, very modest, very low-key gentleman, but knows what he's talking about. And I have to say, in all fairness, that do not be dissuaded by disinformation, non-information, no information. Don't do that. Get the information. That's what I'm always been about for years, which is education through good information, so that you can make the decisions that are necessary for you and your family to sustain. And again, retirement is no fun if you don't have resources. And I am just tired. I don't know about others, but I'm tired of hearing people talking about how great things are. And I'm like, I don't know how, because it's really not funny as we look at where things are going and where things are headed. Let me see if we can get Don back. Is Don back online yet?
I'm here.
Oh, okay, I didn't know. Well, I need to see your face. Okay. All righty. So I know that, you know, we're into your time. I know you've got another commitment. And how are we on time?
I've got 8 minutes until I'm speaking to Poland.
What are you doing in Poland? What are you going to be talking about with the Polish people?
Well, I'm talking about housing wealth.
In Poland?
In Poland. Yep. Reverse mortgages are all over the world.
This is so amazing. So you're going to be talking to Polish advisors?
It's an organization that's based in Poland. We're doing some things, and I've got a 10:15 call scheduled with them. But we're in New Zealand, Australia, Canada, UK, Singapore, China. Reverse mortgages are not an American phenomenon. They're all over. And what's happening right now is that retirement is going to last longer than we expected. We haven't
thanks
saved
to
enough.
Not to interrupt you, but thanks to the ingenuity of technology, they can replace everything except your money.
Sure. Yeah, right. You can't replace that. And so let me land a plane on the 5 major concerns that retirees are facing. Here's what we've discovered. They all begin with the letter L, the 5 L's. Longevity, lifestyle, liquidity, legacy, and long-term care. Let me unpack those. Longevity. Here's a concern, the number one concern of retirees: will I have enough savings to meet my basic living expenses? That's longevity. Those are the commercials you see about running out of money in retirement. That's a very serious concern. And I ask clients, where is this thing? Here's a question we just developed this the other day. On a scale of 1 to 10 for your viewers, how much does the thought of running out of savings in retirement trouble you, if you had to rate that? The second L is lifestyle. Lifestyle means I couldn't do the things I wanted to do. I had to go to the matinee versus the premiere. I had to have the hamburger versus the steak. I couldn't go on the cruise, but I could go on the little boat on the Ohio River.
Oh my
It-
gosh.
I couldn't give gifts to all my grandchildren, but they did get $5 gift cards, each of them, this Christmas. Lifestyle means um, having to adjust how I live in retirement just to make it. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how disappointed would you be if you had to adjust your standard of living to make your savings last? Then there's liquidity. A lot of people don't have enough money saved up to replace their washer, or if the roof goes, or if they have some emergency, or they had to go to the hospital for a visit and the copay of the car insurance was $1,000. That's a hardship. So liquidity, having access to tax advantage money. Legacy, how will I be financially remembered? Now, that doesn't mean I left money to my children. It may mean I didn't borrow money. I didn't have to move into Katie's spare bedroom, or I didn't have to have Katie go part-time or quit her job because of the last L, which is long-term care. Long-term care, most people don't have a long-term care plan. That's
I
not necessarily
know. Gosh.
that's not necessarily long-term care insurance, but a long-term health plan means that the average out-of-pocket expense for health care is now going to be $280,000 for the average for the married couple retiring today. $280,000. That doesn't include the long-term care cost, which the government says is about $130,000. So we're $500,000, and for a married couple, for the out-of-pocket cost of caring for health. Where are you going to get that money from? How do you plan for it? If you don't have a long-term care plan, you're it. Your children are it. If you're looking at your spouse, you're saying to them, you're it.
Oh my gosh.
And so those 5 L's, whatever you do in retirement, it's got to be, your retirement plan has to meet your longevity concern, your lifestyle concern, your liquidity concern, your legacy concern, and your long-term care concern. Housing wealth incorporates with what you're already doing to help you meet those 5 concerns. That has to be of paramount importance to your listeners. Michelle, I'm up on a hard stop right now, and but I appreciate you and your listeners. They can always find me at housingwealth.net. That's my website, housingwealth.net. You can find me there, and you get the book at Amazon. So
I think this has been amazing and wonderful. Great success with your conference with the experts in Poland. We are truly living in a global world society today where people are concerned just like we are. I keep telling everyone we are more alike than we're not alike. And people want to be able to age gracefully. They don't want to have what's happening in Japan and in China and in other countries where there are no provisions for the elderly and no opportunity. So I just want to thank you for your contribution, and also for the American colleges contribution and their involvement with this housing wealth challenge. And again, I look forward to seeing you in the very near future to talk about this in much more depth. But this has been a great show. Again, I thank you for your time. God's peace with you, and God love you.
Thank you. Bye now.
Love you.
Love you.
He's so smart. Gosh, I love him. But for those of you that want copies of this show, to watch it on YouTube, you can always type in The Power of Money, Housing Wealth, Michelle Graves, and you will see this entire interview, which was done on Skype. That's technology. He's in Philadelphia. He's not flying out here to do what he has to do. He's greatly in demand, and you can understand why. But I'm going to share with all of you, and I'm going to share it from the depths of my heart. Do not allow bad information to keep you out of the loop. Do not allow other people's opinions of what they don't know about. This is a biggie. I say things to people all the time, and they look back at me with a blank stare. I mean, I've had so many people tell me the government's going to take your house. I'm like, excuse me, time out. If you have a mortgage with a bank and you are delinquent on your mortgage, guess who takes the house? It's not your house. It's the bank's house. They've got a lien. You may have your name on the title, but it is not your house until it has zero mortgage. So when people tell me, oh, you don't understand. I can't do that program because the federal government's going to take my house. I said, no, that's not the truth. But I am going to tell you the truth, and that is that if you are not current on your mortgage payments, the bank will foreclose on your home. And why? Because it's theirs. They have a lien. That's a truth. Okay, so again, it's breaking the cycle of misinformation and bad information that I'm committed to. And so in line with this is why I'm pushing this book. You can call it, well, why is she promoting the book? Because it's to help you. I already know about this program. I'm grateful he wrote the book. I've been telling him, you better write a book because my generation is baby bust, not baby boomer. And people are going to be going through some bad situations, which is more than greeting you at Walmart. People are going to be dealing with health issues as their health conditions deteriorate from all manner of chronic diseases that are not curable. It's like an old car. Some things you can replace, and ultimately you can replace the car, but not with humans. When things begin to break down, sometimes they can get overwhelming, and the cost can become overwhelming. Now, before you fall back into your plan D or F, which is the government will take care of me, no, they won't. They're going to tell you, you better find yourself some children or family members or somebody. And I'm going to say to you that you need to get information so that you can do better and you can order your steps in a better way, so as to live a fruitful and positive and joyful retirement. That's really what's up. As the kids say, that's what's up. That is what's up. Being able to enjoy your grandchildren, travel, enjoy your home, entertain, do the things that say, I have earned this, rather than playing it out differently. I hope you've enjoyed today's segment of The Power of Money and the information that we provided to you on housing wealth. You can always Google Don Graves and be a part of his webinars and all that if you want to learn more about this. Church groups, the same thing. I know that he flies all over. You need to give me a call. 800-734-3915. That's 800-734-3915. I'm Michelle Graves, your host on today's segment of The Power of Money, and I hope that you have learned a little bit, gotten some good information, and now you're in a position to go further. I wish you a wonderful day. I wish you and send you the peace of God and the blessings from heaven. You take care until next time. Goodbye.